What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Miss Sophia the Diva, and I'm back again for another review of ABC's Secrets and Lies, Season 2, Episode 5, The Daughter. Now, last week's title was appropriately titled The Detective, and we all thought we were referring to Detective Cornell. Essentially, last week when we left off, we learned that Kate was looking into Neil's credit card statements, which we now know he was having a good time on the company card paying for hoes. Now, this week we open up because remember, Eric is like no holds barred. Like either you're going to be upfront with me or you're going to be upfront with another party. He lures Neil into his apartment only to get ambushed by Danny. During the ambush and shaking Neil down for information, Detective Cornell some kind of way shows up. She knocks on the door, and Danny opens the door and is like, "Detective." But we also learn, and this is where we now know why Danny is not just anybody. He's not just some amateur detective or super sleuth. No, this mofo is freaking NYPD. He is Detective Danny Voss, okay? So we now know that that's why he's always 5 steps ahead of everybody else, okay? We also learned in this episode that Eric truly did not know who his wife was. I was like, who were you sleeping next to, honey? Was her name really Kate? Of course, we do learn in this episode her name really was Kate. We learned that she had some DNA sent off to a lab, which I have no doubt that's probably for the benefit of finding out who her child is, okay? So in this episode, we learn a little bit more about Detective Danny Voss. We learned that he was a single father raising his daughter. His wife and him got a divorce, but in the time of divorce, she died, okay? So the night that Rachel, his daughter, disappeared, they got into a little spat. He found some boy hanging out in her closet, and he tells her, you ain't doing nothing with your life but sleeping through, basically sleeping through your senior class. I was like, damn, Dad. So that really hurt, and I can imagine it can hurt. He says, there's people over, your Uncle Mitch is coming over, and she's like, that's not our family. He was like, he's like family. And I'm going to wrap up his storyline right here too, because, what we also learned in his conversations with like Detective Cornell is the fact that he had a daughter with issues, and Detective Cornell was like, well, how is that any different from any other cop? We all have kids with issues. And if you remember last season, I don't remember what all happened, but Andrea had trouble with her own daughter. So he says, well, it's not really like that. I messed up and I wasn't paying attention to the signs. Come to find out, this Uncle Mitch that was his partner, since the age of 13, he had been molesting his daughter, Rachel. And he was like, I should have seen all the signs, the promiscuity, all of that, but I just wasn't paying attention. I was caught up in my work. And that's when you kind of see the layers and hardness of Detective Cornell kind of fall away. As a matter of fact, Detective Cornell don't like too many people. So she even says, it's okay, honey. Call me Andrea. I said, call me Andrea. Maybe that's what they should have called this episode. I'm just saying. So I just wanted to give y'all some insight on Danny. Now, Eric is pissed because he's like, wait a minute. So were you sent as an inside spy to spy on me by Cornell? He's like, no, not like that. I just was trying to use whatever information I could get to my daughter. He said, honestly, if I wanted to snitch on you, I would have told her about Liam's illegal dealings and the fact that you didn't disclose to anybody that he had been doing all these illegal dealings, which you have an obligation to do. So they part ways. Plus, Eric really doesn't see Danny as an issue because he's like, well, it's not like I'm a suspect with Cornell. And Detective Danny was like, I got news for you, son. Until she has a perp in chains, everybody's still fair game. He says, why do you think she didn't give you an update on anything? Why don't you test that out? Find out, as next of kin, you the grieving husband, right? Just test that out. Later in the episode, we see Eric take Danny's advice and test the waters with Cornell. And so what happens is that there's a point in the story when Detective Cornell walks up on Eric basically trying to break the code or the password into his wife's iPad that no one knew about. Although I think Cornell knows about it, and that's why she was looking at me, oh, you seem to have forgotten your password. During this time, Eric is up there, Control Alt Delete, Control Alt Delete, escape, escape, escape. I'm just kidding. Cat Williams does a bit about, if we ever went to war with the Chinese and how they would just cut off our internet. And I was like, oh shit. See, as I remember, there was a time when I said Detective Cornell is the type of detective that does not ask a question she does not already know the answer to, Eric, so you might as well be honest about it. And so she was like, you seemed awfully eager to get your wife's post office box material. And would you be surprised that she had sent off for a DNA lab? Did you know she had paid $100,000 mortgage for somebody in a house in Boone? Eric was like, you know what, Detective Cornell, I'm just gonna be real with you right here. Yeah, I married a woman I don't know shit about. I mean, that's all I got to say. So, do you have any information on me? Information update for me? How come you didn't tell me that Neil had got set free? And I mean, I am the next of kin. And she was like, I think that's what he wanted to know, is why you let me know that you let Neil go free. Because what happened with Neil, when Detective Cornell showed up, she took him to the station and interviewed him. And they found out, basically her boss, the major, told her, he was like, tread lightly with this one because he has the resources and we don't want him to lawyer up. Get as much as you can from him. Neil concedes that he lied about Carly, basically, and he says that he was embarrassed because, she's an escort. She was like, oh, no, Detective Cornell was like, oh, an escort, oh, okay. He said, let me put it this way, I've been married 3 times, and I just prefer now to pay up front, which I'm like, okay, Eric, that's probably, not Eric, excuse me. Okay, Neil, that's probably a good deal because, shit, if you've been married that many times, how much alimony did y'all have in the kids? Because that can be very costly. Or if you one of them people that chose to take on the responsibilities of another man's child, because you could be paying child support too, I'm just saying. He met her at a bar, and all he has is her cell number, which is now disconnected. Cornell started schooling him like, dude, you didn't go through her service. Usually most women go through a service. And he was like, no, she just gave me her cell number. And so he says, look, I'm sorry, I lied. Like I said, I was just embarrassed, because I did have sex with this woman at the company and she's an escort and, whatever. Detective Cornell said people only say they're sorry when they get caught. So Neil kind of semi-invokes. He says, look, if I'm not under arrest, I done told you everything I can tell you, but if I'm not under arrest, let me go or let me get an attorney. Now, half of your boss told you not to push him too far. That's why you need a partner. Girl, we understand you messed up, because I still can't remember what happened to her partner. I don't know if it happened during the season 1 or it was a backstory of season 1. Detective Cornell, while talking to Eric, Eric asked her about, why you let him know that Neil got let go. She says, you're both liars, but that don't make you murderers. It doesn't rise to that level. I'm like, what does that mean, Detective Cornell? So when Cornell and Eric wrap up their conversation, he packed up all his stuff. He mad as hell. He was like big mad. So at the end of the conversation with Eric and Detective Cornell, Eric storms off and says to her, don't you have someone else's life to destroy? I think that kind of stung her because I think Ben Crawford probably really bothers her, the fact that she got the wrong man. Which I'm like, why are y'all even letting her still work cases by herself? Because she did get the wrong man. You could be chasing after the wrong man again. We have convened a family meeting. Reason why we have convened a family meeting is because, number 1, we done caught Patrick and Neil hemmed up in the company talking. Here come Eric. And so what it was is that the conversation between Patrick and Neil were kind of weird anyway. Patrick was telling Neil to calm down, and Neil was talking about he can't keep saying the same thing, and I'm just like, what's that about? What's that about? So Eric confronts them. He told Patrick he was going to deal with him later, and that Neil, he just can't believe that the cops actually let your ass go free. And Neil is like, you know what? I've had enough. Hey, I'm packing my shit and getting up out of here. And he was like, I quit. So when the Warner siblings convene, this is something suspicious. So they're meeting to talk about the fact that, once again, Eric married a woman he didn't really know. Amanda, you brought this heifer into the family. This was your law school buddy. But Amanda seems more concerned about why did Neil quit. Okay? And then her and Patrick exchanged a look when Eric snapped and was like, look, stay focused here. We got to focus on what's going on. They find out that at one point, Kate had made 2 phone calls to a number down in Boone that was unregistered. Some woman named Jay Cameron. They find is who's there. She answered the phone, but she said she didn't know a Kate Warner. Which later on we learn when they go down there, she really did know a Kate Warner. Okay? Patrick is such a dizzy head. He was like, so did you call the number? Eric looked at him and was like, yes, dumbass. Of course I called the numbers. Patrick lets it slip during this conversation that he knows that Danny is a cop. And Amanda's like, cop? What cop? And then Eric was like, how the hell do you know? Oh, he was like, oh, I think Neil told me. I'm like, That's even more suspicious. Couple that with the fact that Patrick didn't want to take that meeting. And he was watching this house last episode talking about this is bad. And now all of a sudden you know Danny is a cop, but you're not sure if Neil was the one to tell you. That's suspicious. So guess who's going on a road trip, basically, to do some investigation? Super Sleuth. It's going to be the Warner boys. It's going to be better than the Hardy boys, okay? Amanda warns them. She says, I'm going to look into Danny, but I need for y'all to be safe going down there to Boone because, honey, it can be a little backwoods back there. I was like, basically redneck country. And so Patrick was like, wait a minute, are we talking Honey Boo Boo or swamp people? I was like, ah! She says, actually a little bit of both. He was like, ooh. So Patrick's wife shows up. This is where Melanie has her moment of shade, okay? So she's like, oh, I was just coming to bring the boys some treats so they could. And Amanda was like, what are you doing here? Ugh, I can't stand you. And so, I mean, they really hate Patrick. So I'm like, what is her backstory? I'm hoping in tonight's episode we learn what her backstory is. And so she throws major shade and a dagger because she goes, oh, that's right. She was like, oh, you two, do y'all have to do that in there? Because she was being all affectionate to Patrick. And she goes, the secret to a happy marriage is affection, Amanda. But what would you know about that? Oh, that's right, because you single now. I was like, God damn. And Amanda's like, how the fuck did she know? And so they walk out. Eric comes in. She's like, how the hell do you know? He said, well, I told Patrick, but I didn't know that he was going to tell his wife. And so he was like, plus his family has too many secrets anyway. And, you know, honestly, I think part of that comes from the fact that his soon-to-be former brother-in-law shares with him that your family has too many secrets anyways. So that makes sense. They get on the road. They crack a few jokes. So they get to this house. They knock on the door. This woman answers the door. They say that they're looking for Kate Warner. And she's like, you mean Kate Martin? And he was like, well, Kate Warner is her married name. She comes out on the porch. She's telling her, I've been waiting for you guys. When are you going to come? And then that's when she learns, oh my God, she married you. So we learned that, number one, she thought when Eric and Patrick first showed up that they were process servers. Number two, she had been behind on her mortgage for her house. Kate, it sounds like that $100,000 that Kate took from Eric is what she used to pay off her mom's mortgage. And we learned why. Kate told a story to Amanda about there was a time in my life when this guy I know was about to propose to this girl, but I intervened and I got the guy. But that wasn't very nice. And I still kind of feel bad about it. It wasn't very nice. Guess who's in the story, what that means? Her mama man. 16 years old, seduced her mom's boyfriend. Stole her mama's man. And put that on top of everything else, we learned that Kate got pregnant by a dude too. Kate has a baby by her mother's ex-boyfriend, which thus makes him kind of a pedophile. So Eric is hot and heated. They go and find Jake, because what happens, they reveal this phone number that she had been calling. She was, that's Jake's number. So before the boys can get down there, her mom then call. He come out to the front, told his wife stay in the house. Eric is heated. Here's the deal with this scene, and I don't get it, because I'm just like, Eric, that happened like, I don't know what, 20 years ago. She grown and gone now. There's no need to defend your wife's honor. You don't even know whose honor you defending at this point. So, plus you got a deadly right hook. Now, granted, the dude in high school did have a pre-existing condition. All I'm saying is that you might not want to put that fist of fury out there too often. We learn from Jake more of the story. First of all, Jake's wife overheard the conversation about the fact that he was sleeping with an underage girl 20 years ago, and she ain't too happy about that. So it looks like Eric broke up his happy home. Damn. They go to a diner, I think, or somewhere, and talk about the fact that Kate did reach out to him. She let him know that she had found the son that she had given up all those years ago, and asked if he would be interested in meeting his son. And of course, he had said no. She shared with him a picture of the boy, but he still, he just wasn't interested. He's like, I've got girls. He says, I realize now it was wrong. And he said back then it wasn't even, I guess in maybe in North Carolina, I don't know, maybe back then, 20 years ago, the age of consent was 16, where you could, be with an older man if you were 16 or over. So the brothers are hanging out at a diner. They have a nasty spat about whose wife is better and more honorable. Eric tells Patrick that, we just call them how we see them, and your wife is trash. And he was like, basically, Patrick was like, takes one to know one, because your wife don't sound too saintly herself. And I was like, oh my God. But when they said Jake, I was like, Jake from State Farm? I couldn't help it. I just have to say Jake from State Farm. Patrick also reminds Eric that despite everything, at least out of everybody in the family, Kate at least accepted my wife. But I'm like, because now we know Kate had her own shortcomings too. And that's why we now have figured out that that's why Kate was talking to Liam about, do you believe in second chances? And, you can make life right? When they get back from the road, they hug and make up because nothing's more important than family between Patrick and Eric. Danny pops up on the scene. When the boys get back from the road, they have a little makeup session. We know that family is more important. We also learn further about Mama Warner, that apparently she was a drunken hell on wheels. And so that's probably why Amanda and Eric really don't want to have anything to do with her. Danny pops up once again on the scene. Of course, Eric does not want to see him. Patrick says, should I go jump on the horn and just lay on until the neighbors come? He was like, did you learn that in your woman's defense class? He was like, no, but Melanie did, and I think it's highly effective. I was like, oh my God. So Danny comes to him. He says he needs his help. Why does he need his help? Because he needs to locate Neil. Well, too bad, so sad, Danny. I don't think Neil is going to be very receptive in helping you. He quit SCG today, and we have bidded him adieu, okay? They go up to Eric's loft to have a conversation. Amanda shows up, and that's when we find out even more about Danny. We learn that Danny's out on the limb, too. Now, he's an NYPD cop, but he done jumped ship during the middle of a major narcotics trial where he was testifying. So now they didn't issue a bench warrant for his ass, okay? So Danny is back out on the limb again. We bid him Godspeed. Okay? Also during this episode, speaking of Amanda, Amanda's so stressed out and strung out, she's smoking on cigarettes like Tweet. Okay, you got me smoking on cigarettes. I don't know how that song goes, but y'all know Tweet wrote a song about smoking on cigarettes. Cornell approaches her. Now, I don't understand what Cornell could possibly be looking for. Maybe it's fiber. Maybe it's just the fabric and fiber. Because she tells Amanda, I'm going down the list. I'm going to need your dress from the night of the party. And Amanda's like, what the hell you need that for? Because I've already dry cleaned it. She was like, I'm looking for something else, so don't worry about it. Then, in the middle of the conversation with Amanda, she was like, where your daddy? She was like, I don't know. I guess he's out on business or something. I really don't know. And that's my question, too. Where is John Warner? Where is he? Where is Papa? I also noticed that Kate left that cigarette, and Detective Cornell looked at it. I'm pretty sure she probably picked it up. Maybe we'll find that out in another episode of Detective Cornell's Cornell Confidential, which I'm going to speak about that at the end of this video. Her ex is still calling her at the precinct. I also find it interesting, they're looking at that video material. Now, remember when Eric was looking at the video material, the security video, he saw a woman in a red jacket. Now, because we know that Kate did locate her son, I'm wondering if that's the adoptive mother, and if that person, that woman, decided to confront Kate and they got into a scuffle, and she's the reason why Kate plunged to her death. Comment down below. Let me know what you think about that. So in addition to asking for Amanda's dress, to me, which seems late, but hey, it's Detective Cornell. She has a great close rate according to her boss man. We also learned that she wants the video footage now. So I'm like, well, how did y'all get the footage of the woman? Maybe she hacked it in Neil's. I don't know. But either way, it's kind of confusing to me. In addition, the partner, or the not-so-partner, locates Carly on some date site or whatever. And so they lure her to a bar with him as the bait. Okay. So she solicits and tells him she's going to need the money up front. That's when Cornell, angry face, we're going to call her RBF, resting bitch face. When RBF shows up, that's when they take her down to the precinct. They walk her through the bullpen. You should have seen the looks on some of them men's faces when she was walking through, and how she was looking at them like, hey, Charlie, Chuck, I know you. What's up? Yep, date tomorrow night. Let's get it popping. I was like, something ain't right about this whole scene, but that's how it looked. Come to find out, this heifer has been servicing the top brass and quite a few other people in the Charlotte PD, okay? She interviews her. Of course, she claims entrapment. I'm like, honey, solicitation is a crime that stands alone by itself. Once communicated, it has been completed. How is that entrapment? Okay, it's almost never a defense. I don't even know why we use it as a defense. When has it ever been successful? Carly denies knowing Danny's daughter. She does confirm Neil's alibi about them being together. At this point, I'm just like, what's the real story here? Cornell meets up with Danny, who we now know is out on the limb. And she lets him know, I have Carly in custody. But when she gets back to the precinct, Carly already gone. And whoever had her released is above her pay grade. That's all we know. So at the conclusion of this episode, we see that basically Cornell's boss is now privy to everything that she's been doing and not supposed to be doing. And he was like, you need to go ahead and turn in your buddy from the NYPD. I know about him. They got a bench warrant for his ass on if you get information, or you'll be on a long vacation. Basically, she's going to be facing suspension. Her face all broke. So she got to do what she got to do, even though she don't want to. With Danny, because he's like, I know you using him for the case, but you can't be breaking the law too. So let's talk about Cornell Confidential and previews. Cornell talked to Amanda's husband, Greg Young, and we learned from him that the night of the party, he served her with papers, divorce papers. And Cornell is looking at him like, why would you do it at the party? He said, honey, is there any other time right to serve anybody with papers? Okay, we need to get through this. I'm on call. Let's get through this. So that's interesting, because she was like, well, I thought y'all were talking about starting a family and all of this. He was like, things change. And I think those things that changed, that he found out that she was cheating in the next room. Because in Detective Cornell Confidential, we also see Eric's assistant, Miss Stone, be interviewed. And she trying to figure out what John Warner is, honey. Talking about, don't you make his flight plan? She was like, sometimes Mr. Warner does his own thing. She was like, look, everybody at SEG is on the straight and narrow. But, well, except for people like Neil. And that's when we learned that Kate and Neil had gotten into a verbal altercation about him having sex in the office with an in-law. And he was like, and wait a minute. And then Miss Stone was like, do I need to spell it out to you? Baby. So, yeah, I think that's confirmation that unless he was sleeping with Patrick, I mean, who else is it going to be? Amanda. I'm still trying to figure out what's up with her and Neil anyways. Like, why would you get with him? But she was very concerned when she found out he had quit. So what's she been covering up for him? In addition, someone named Mr. Peterson comes by. I saw another video. Mr. Peterson came by to see Kate. So apparently he's not privy to the fact that Kate is deceased. So Eric plays him as like, what's your angle? You a news reporter? He's like, no, I just came to see Kate about investments. And so he says, sir, my wife passed away 2 weeks ago. And that's when his face just shattered. Here's my thing. I don't think that he means any harm. I think he's coming to see Kate to talk about his son, Charlie, because I have a feeling that that is his adoptive father. Go to abc.com for Secrets and Lies and check those videos out and tell me what you think. I think the woman in the red blazer is Charlie, Kate's son's adoptive mother. I think that something happened between them. Next week, we see that Melanie is at odds with her brother-in-law, and she basically told him in the preview, she was like, don't make me break my foot off in your ass about Patrick. I love him. I'm a scrapper. I'm a fighter. I'm a lover. And I was like, oh, damn, girl. And then Eric let her know, I'm not fazed by you and your big words for a little spoiled brat, girl. She's like, Basically, she was like, bring it, boo. I was like, God damn. Because, he tells her everything. What else? Also, during the previews, it showed that Cornell asked Eric, are you really interested in me solving the murder of your wife? And then my other question is, where's Pop Warner? That's all I've got. See you guys tonight on Twitter at Afia the Diva. We will talk about this upcoming episode known as The Parent. Good night.